You ready to start, Rosine?
I am ready to start.
Excellent. Hello, everyone joining us today for this firm brown bag. We are happy to welcome you to this series, which is meant to share best practices, highlight stories, and lessons learned. Today we have with us Rosine Tadajo, who is the manager for the Korea Trust Fund, KOAFEC Trust Fund. Korea is an important partner to the bank and has been a member of the bank since the early 80s. They are the sponsor for one of the largest trust funds at the bank, and we are pleased to discuss the areas of focus, the process, and some of the stories that we can highlight today about the fund. So without further ado, I'd like Rosine to discuss the Korea Trust Fund. And again, Korea is an important relationship, long-standing relationship, and we're happy to welcome Rosine today to talk about the KOAFEC Trust Fund. Rosine, over to you.
Thank you, Rod, for the introduction. And thank you for everybody who is connected and who is willing and eager to hear more about Korea and the KOAFEC Trust Fund. We stand for Korea and Africa Economic Cooperation. So the KOAFEC Trust Fund, so I'm the relationship manager for this trust fund, which is, as Rod said, the largest bilateral trust fund. And we will see more about that. So without further ado, I will start with the presentation. We'll just go, straight into the presentation. So the trust fund, as I said, Korea Africa Economic Cooperation Trust Fund, it was first launched in 2007. To this day, the trust fund size is 85 million. So $85 million is the amount that Korea has contributed to the trust fund, and that's why it's the largest trust fund so far. And they contribute about 9 million, actually it's 18 million every 2 years, so it's about 9 million a year. And with that, the upcoming contribution that we expect to have this year or next, it will bring the trust fund size to about $100 million, and it will definitely be unprecedented in the bank in terms of bilateral trust fund. The trust fund only provide grants, and the area of intervention, as you can see, it's 6 of them, mainly infrastructure development, ICT, human resources, agricultural development, green growth, and knowledge sharing. As I said, the only instrument is grants, and the trust fund is untied. So all the resources that arrive in the trust fund, the procurement is international bidding, and everybody can basically win the project to implement the activity. So it's untied. It doesn't have to go to a specific country or a specific country. The criteria for eligibility, every activities that is submitted, every proposal has to be submitted by a department of the bank. So proposal can't be submitted directly to Korea, or they cannot come from outside parties of the bank. So the banks have to be, the project and the proposal have to be sponsored by a department in the bank. So regarding the minimum and the maximum grant size, there is no maximum amount. However, there are thresholds for approval. So everything that is above 1 million has to be approved at the board level. And we'll see that later. Everything that is below 100,000 can be approved internally by the technical review committee, and between 100,000 and 1 million, it goes to Korea for approval. So typically, the project and the proposal that we have received will range between 200 and 600,000. The donors, it's Korea only because it's a bilateral trust fund. And the lifespan, well, I'm happy to report, and I think that maybe many people who have been interested in the trust fund have been awaiting the signature of the General Cooperation Agreement that expired a few years back. So it took a very long time for us to renegotiate the terms of the GCA. And I'm happy to report that last week, the GCA the final draft of the GCA was approved by the Board of Governors. And one particularity of this GCA is that now it will be outstanding for a period of 10 years. Before it was 5 years, and we extended that to 10 years. So right now, the GCA has been approved. It is yet to be signed, but hopefully it should be done this month, and it will run for another 10 years. So we are hoping as well that the trust fund will go for another 10 years. Oops, up. So as I was saying, so the donors is only Korea. And again, it's Korea stands for Korea Africa Economic Cooperation. And it's supposed to be it aims to be a comprehensive platform for the pursuit of a lasting and mutually beneficial partnership between Africa and Korea. So the entities that are involved in the trust fund, you have the bank, obviously, the African Development Bank Group. You have the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Strategy and Finance, and you have KEXIM, which is the Export-Import Bank of Korea. The objective of this trust fund is to support the economic development and capacity building of RMCs or project in RMCs. So the idea is really to make sure that front end, well, to provide grants so that upstream, in advance of the project, we can make sure that the project would go well and we reduce the cost and the risk of the project and these activities. So basically, all the activities and all the projects are supposed to take place either in the RMC or be for the benefit of RMCs. We went over that in the summary, but again, here you have all areas, the 6 areas of intervention of the KOAFEC Trust Fund. So energy, again, agriculture, information, communication, technology, human resources, knowledge sharing, and climate change. That was particularly true for the last action plan of the KOAFEC that ran from 2019 to 2020. Okay, so this trust fund, as I said, first of all the proposals have to be submitted in English to the Korean Trust Fund Secretariat, and the priority is given to activity in RMCs. Now we have a whole range of activities that can be supported. So as you can see the list, so it's like feasibility studies, technical assistance, capacity building, studies, research, dissemination, networking, and cross-learning. And you have other technical assistance that can be proposed by the government or by the bank, as long as the activities are acknowledged and relevant to the enhancement of the cooperation between the two, well, between Africa and Korea. And you have even innovative approaches that can also be sponsored. So there is really this idea that Korea, a few decades back, was facing the same challenges that Africa is, and that there is a lot to learn from their experience. And this is the platform is aiming to do that as well, to learn from Korea experience. So I can see that someone raised their hand. I don't know, Gian, if I take question now or if I should just go on with the presentation.
No, we're gonna
As there is Q&A at
we'll take questions at the end. Why don't you go ahead with the presentation, and then we'll spend the remainder of the time answering questions.
Sure. Okay, so what many people are interested about and what will be completely relevant now is how do we get funding from Korea and from the KOAFEC Trust Fund. Since the GCA has been signed, now the bank will engage again with Korea to receive additional contribution. And this contribution will serve to finance the next action plan. So the action plan are derived from the consultative meetings. So I will explain what those consultative meetings are in the governance structure. But basically what you need to know is that we will launch, that's usually what we do, a bank-wide call for proposal. So what you see in orange is what the firm department does. So we will launch a bank-wide call for proposal. We will receive the proposal. Usually we give 2 weeks to receive the proposal, and the proposal are to be received. It's about 4 months before the KOAFEC conference, and I'll come to the KOAFEC conference as well in a minute. So based on those proposal, firms comes with a long list of proposal, and those proposals are submitted to the TRC, as I said, for proposal under over 100,000. They are submitted to the TRC under 100,000 and above. They are submitted to MOEF. Actually, when we do the bank-wide call for proposal, we submit everything to Korea. And basically, our counterpart in Korea will be the Ministry of Finance that will be facing the secretariat in the bank. So we submit all those proposals to Korea, and Korea comes back to us. Well, together we come up with a short list, basically. So this short list of proposal will be submitted to the consultative group meeting. So the consultative group we'll see on the next slide, but it's basically the policy decision making and strategy setting body for the KOAFEC. So it's cooperation between Korea and RMCs. And when we organize consultative group meeting, you have representative of Africa, you have representative of Korea, you have EDs from Korea, you also have, EDs, not EDs from Korea. Well, you have the advisor from Korea, and you have EDs that are representing African countries. So I would say a very big meeting, and it's during this meeting that the action plan that is endorsed. So basically the short list that we came up with in collaboration with MOEF will be endorsed during the action plan. After that, the action plan will be approved during the KOAFEC Ministerial Conference. So until this day, the KOAFEC Ministerial Conference happen every 2 years. It occurs in Korea. And again, we have representatives, so the president is there, a representative of, actually we have minister from Africa, we have a representative for Korea. So it's actually a very big event. And it's during that event that the action plan is officially approved and it's officially launched. So once the action plan is approved, we will inform the user department that their proposal have been accepted, and then we will start, they will start implementation. Obviously, there are requirements in terms of reporting and monitoring. And we have to keep in mind or be aware that the approval process is very long. As I said, we received the proposal 4 months, at least 4 months before the KOAFEC conference takes place. And it's only during the KOAFEC conference that the approval is, the action plan is approved.
Hey, Rosine.
Yes.
There's can you close the PowerPoint section, because it's preventing people from seeing the right side of the screen. You see on the right?
This?
You can close it. Yes, exactly.
Is it better?
That's a lot better.
Sorry about that.
That's
so
okay.
I guess the part that was hidden was the fact that it's reviewed by the TRC and by MOEF, like the proposal. I guess now I'll just give you a few seconds to look at the chart again. All right. So going back to the governance structure, I touched on that a little, but basically at the top of the pyramid, if I may say so, you have the KOAFEC consultative group, as I said, with representative of Korea and the bank and the RMCs, and it is the policy decision setting body. I think it's the KOAFEC trust fund is the only trust fund that has this kind of governance structure with a consultative group where we bring together representative of the bank, the RMCs, and Korea. So this is the policy decision making body. And then after that, we have for approval, this is things that are already touched on, for approval of proposal. If it's above 1 million, it has to go to the board of director. If it's below 100,000, it can be approved by the TRC, which is chaired by firm director. And if it's between 100 and 1 million, it is approved by the Ministry of Economy and Finance with support of KEXIM. And then the secretariat of the KOAFEC Trust Fund is basically firm, the firm department, and I am part of this secretariat. So the secretariat will do the screening for the project, the initial screening, make sure that the proposal are sound and eligible, and then we will also follow up with everything that has to do with reporting. Those that have, so it's a very large trust fund, so maybe the rules are a little bit more stringent than for other trust fund because it's also a lot of money. So size, we will often, you will, in fact, people that have project with KOAFEC may have experience that sometimes we will block the activity if there is, if the reporting is, if the activity is not compliant on a reporting basis. So on the reporting, there is a need to send activity progress report every 6 months. So after the end of the year and after the middle of the year. So all this is written in the KOAFEC guidelines. So we have guidelines. So if the activity is not compliant with reporting, we may block the activity until we receive, the APRs. If the activity has not disbursed for 6 months or a year, we may just cancel the activity. I think we need to appreciate that it's the largest bilateral trust fund, and if we want to keep receiving contribution for Korea, we have a duty, and especially firm has the duty to make sure that the use of the fund is sound and it's taken seriously. So firm will handle all that. So every administrative issues. So if you have issues as well, and this is who you will contact. And I guess that's basically it for the role of firm. Coming to the track record of the trust fund right now, the total fund is about 85 million. Again, it's the total contribution with interest. The total contribution that we have received from Korea. So far, we have disbursed about $54 million as of September 2020. We would very much like to have this disbursement rate to be higher, and that's why we are in the process, and we will do that regularly, cancel activities. We will reach out first. Don't just cancel activity, but we will reach out to you to make sure that, well, to understand why you are not disbursing, but we need this disbursement rate to be higher, because this is something that the donor is looking at, and it's also something that we will start using when we receive proposal. We will look at the history of the department in using the fund. So we will not, the priority will be given to department that are compliant with reporting, to department that disburse fund regularly, because this is something that is important to donors. So right now we are at 55 million of disbursed fund, and we have currently about 2.5 million available for commitment. So the difference, so available for commitment actually means that we can accept or we can fund more project up to the level of 2.5 million. The rest of the funds is already allocated to projects that are, unfortunately, some of them are not disbursing fast enough, and that's why you have this difference between 85 million for 55 million of disbursement and only 2.5 million of commitment. We are also engaged right now in the process of, as I said, canceling activities. And so far, so we cancel activities when there has not been any disbursement for a while. And when, so you're also supposed to submit a PCR, a project completion report. So sometimes department do not submit completion report, so we don't know that the activity has been completed, and there are funds that are remaining in the trust fund. It is fund that could be used to fund other activities. So it's very, I'll say it's very sad. So now we are in the process as well to recovering, all the unused fund on activity that should have been completed even if we have not received the PCR. And this exercise has led us today to adding about another 3 million available for commitment. So it will bring the total to a little over 5 million available for commitment. There are currently 113 ongoing project activities and a total of 200 projects that have been funded by the fund. Again, you can appreciate that over the years, there is still 100 ongoing project activities. I personally think that it's a lot, and I would really like for those projects to be closed as a faster rate. So for that, we will need to actually be better at implementing. We would need to be better also at reporting correctly so that we can reflect to the donors and to the bank um, a real picture of where we are in terms of activities. There has been, the trust fund, the KOAFEC trust fund being the largest, it was very difficult to pick to pick activities or example of successful implementation because there are very many. So I didn't put a lot here, but the trust fund report is available on demand. So one that I choose here is regarding the private sector and increasing private sector investment in frontier Africa through a regional approach. So for this project that was funded by a grant, a reputable consulting firm visited the Republic of Korea. That was in 2018. They conducted business meeting with about 10 companies in Seoul, um, and across various sectors. And then they engaged with government official from the Horn of Africa, essentially, to understand the appetite for Korea investment. And then Seoul visited those countries, and as a result, there was a dedicated investment roundtable for Korean investor, and there were potentially on the table a project with a combined value of $1 billion. So it really shows how a trust fund activity can lead or pave the way for more investment in Africa. So the other example that we have here is in transportation. And again, there are many sectors in which Korea invests. So transportation, and again, thanks to a KOAFEC grant, the ECOWAS, so the Economic Community of West African States, now has a new automotive policy framework. And again, this paved the way for more investment opportunities. In information communication technology, there was a very ambitious project, an innovative project that took place in Tunisia, and it was a drone project. The Tunisian government and the bank signed an agreement to launch 10 months pilot project to use drone for data collection. So far, so the KOAFEC resources were used to produce needed equipment from the Busan, so in Korea, Techno Park, so namely drone, computer systems, and it also helped to provide training and technology transfer. So several pilots were trained to use the drone, and so we have had a very successful, well, they were already very successful in passing their drone, and then there has been a very big impact in a better way to analyze, the soil and agriculture, basically, in Tunisia. Just maybe one last slide. So this is the latest action plan. So 2019-2020. Just as I said at the beginning of the presentation, the GCA, that is the General Cooperation Agreement that governs the relationship between Korea and the bank, expired in 2018. And it took us a long time to renegotiate the terms. So that action plan actually was approved before the GCA expired, and there was we couldn't accept new proposal or implement a new action plan until the GCA was basically renewed and approved. So now that we have the GCA has been, will be signed, we'll have a new action plan that will probably cover 2021 and 2022. But just a zoom on the latest action plan, there was about 12 million in grant financing, 21 projects. 20% of those projects were in North Africa. 40% were based on knowledge sharing with Korea. It's very important. And I guess, well, it's not I guess, I believe that they give priority to projects that can learn from Korea experience. So there was also 5 pre-feasibility studies and continued support to flagship program. That's basically the global ICT leaders program. And as you can see, so you had projects in human capital, ICT, rural development, energy, green growth, and knowledge sharing. 30% of those activities were in the improved quality of life of the people of Africa, if we look at the high five more closely, and 25% in industrialized Africa. Last but not least, these are the contact and the team composition. So you have the KOAFEC secretariat and you have the email address attached to it. And then I will be the relationship manager, and you can contact me anytime when you have questions and you are not sure about what to do or whether something can be financed by the KOAFEC. And Rod is our division manager, OIC at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosine. I forgot to mention that you had been on this this fund for the last 2 years, and you've been at the bank now for roughly 8 years, if I'm not
No,
mistaken.
that is not true. so, so I wish the funds could grow as fast as
as
fast as that.
as your
So
time at the bank.
yeah. So I've been on the file for about a year and a half, I would say, and I've been with the bank for a little over 4 years. I was previously in the Treasury Department.
Yes, I forgot
the
to mention
trading
that.
floor.
I forgot to mention that in your introduction. Apologies. So we have just over 100 participants, which shows the interest in this fund. So we have questions on the Q&A, and if you can, I mean, there are a couple very long ones that you can look at, but why don't we start out with, it says, under areas of interventions, can you confirm if interventions in water supply and sanitation are covered?
Okay, so I answer one by one.
Let's do one for one now, and then we'll, as more come in, we'll group them together. How about that?
Okay, so water supply and sanitation, you can always submit proposal. So the areas of intervention are the one that Korea will prioritize, basically, and then you can always have an angle. So even for example, the one that I talked about, the last one that I talked about was ICT, but underneath, so it was ICT technology that is used, but it was used for agricultural. Basically, the underlying was agricultural project, to enhance agricultural project. So what I'm trying to say is that there is always an angle also that you can show. So it can be water and sanitation, and it may not be one of direct area of intervention, but it depends what you want to do. And again, we will accept proposal, but the area of intervention are just the one to which they give priority.
Okay. Rosine, there's another, I'm going to try and group these a bit. There's another one asking if there has to be Korea content in the project.
That's the question. So
yeah.
It's not a requirement, but again, they will prioritize proposal where there is a Korea, there is a link. Actually, even in writing the proposal or in your APR, they will ask you what is the link back to Korea, basically. So if you can show that somehow you are using whatever, if there is knowledge sharing or if it's based on Korea experience or something, it's always better, but it's not a requirement.
Okay. There's another one, Rosine, which is a bit general, but maybe you can answer it at least for Korea. It says, most of the times the trust funds, the decision-making body by donors is very slow and not transparent. Mm-hmm. The objectives of the fund sound very appealing, but I understand that the disbursement rates are very low. You've talked about disbursement raised. We have huge requirements of project preparation funding, but no one has recommended going to KOAFEC for this purpose. Where's the catch? How can we make this trust fund realistically useful? So it's speaking to process taking a while in terms of going back to the donor. And I think this is a general question, not just specific to Korea, but maybe you can answer it in terms of the types of things that you're doing to streamline processing of proposals for the Korea Trust Fund. And then there's also a question about when is the next call for proposal, and do you only accept proposals by calls for proposal? So maybe that group of questions you can answer.
Okay, so I have to admit that the decision making by donors is very slow. That is very true. That is something that firm is aware of. I will say that especially for Korea, it has been even longer. So what we have done for that is that we have set a timeline. It was not there, but in the new GCA, we have set a timeline. And basically, they have a period of time to respond. And after this period of time, we will like quote unquote make the decision. So we will submit proposal, and if we do not have a reply within the time that is actually written in the trust fund guideline or in the GCA, the bank will deem the proposal accepted. During the negotiation, and that's what it took a very long time. During the negotiation of the GCA, we insisted that the timeline will be written, because usually we will have situation where we will send proposal that will not get back to us during the timeline that is supposedly agreed, and it will take a very long time. It will take more than 11 weeks, and it was not as you say, it was not efficient for our operation. So that's what we have done. We have decided that it will be put in written, the time that they have to get back to us, and if it's not done within that time, then the bank can deem the proposal accepted. We also we tried, but we were not successful, unfortunately, to raise the threshold. So that's why there is a threshold. So for activities that are below 100,000, it is not the donor that approves. So we can approve internally, and then we just let them know, basically. So we try to increase that threshold, but they were not keen to do that, but they agreed to now review the proposal a little faster. Rod, I think I forgot the second part of your question.
When's your next call for proposal, and is that the only way that you accept proposals?
Okay, so yeah, so we do a bank-wide call for proposal. As I said, we will need for the GCA to be signed before we can agree on the date of the next ministerial conference, and then we do a reverse back. So when we have the date of the next ministerial conference, 4 months before, 4 months and 2 weeks before, we will launch a call for proposal. So at this time, it will be very difficult for me to tell you when that would be, because we cannot plan for the ministerial conference until it is officially signed. So the GCA has been approved by the Board of Governors, but we need actually an official signature from Korea and the president before the GCA is in place. And we do after, so this is the regular process, but we also accept proposal outside the call for proposal, as long as the funds permit. So as long as we have funds available for commitment, we can receive ad hoc proposal. There is a limited number. I think we'll receive 5 additional outside the regular cycle.
Okay, there's a couple of questions in French, Rosine, that I'm not going to try and do justice to in terms of pronouncing, but maybe you can, do you see the questions?
I can see. Alors OK, maybe I read it out loud. Dans le cadre d'une prochaine révision, bien vouloir alléger la dame de KOAFEC en l'approchant plus de celle de la banque pour faciliter la mise en œuvre des activités. Pensez à réduire le temps de réaction sur les requêtes. Okay, so basically, the question is asking that we, I guess, streamline or facilitate the implementation of activities by increasing the delay or the reaction time when they send memo for reorganization, for prorogation and stuff. I think I'll take that. I think yes, we could do better, but I will also invite, so, and there is the second part is to make the dam for the KOAFEC lighter. This, I don't think that we will make it lighter. And the reason I say that is the process that we put in place is also because of what we observed on the ground. So it is true that we take a long time to report. We take a longer time that we would like to respond to requests, and that's because it's a very large trust fund. As I said, there is uh, 100 over 100 activities ongoing. We could be maybe staffed better, and it would help. But yes, we are working on being able to respond faster. You have to appreciate as well that because people are not doing the reporting on time, it is a very long process as well for us. It is very difficult to even manage the trust fund. If everything was going smoothly, if people were reporting on time, we wouldn't spend so much time canceling activities, running after people to have APR, having to give explanation to donors, and we will be able to take more time to actually help you in the implementation and respond to your request more efficiently. And that's why also the dam for the KOAFEC is the way it is. It's almost like to have people be more engaged and be more engaged in the implementation of the KOAFEC, of the activity that is funded by the trust fund.
So I think that's a call to action to people that are going to be seeking resources. The
Yes,
more you can help us, you can help us by being more efficient in terms of
yes,
reporting, so
yes.
that we don't have to chase, right?
Yes, absolutely. That will make a very big difference. Like usually people will, for example, people will ask for an extension and they are not compliant with the reporting. So okay, so now you have to be compliant with the reporting. Then we have to go back and look at the review now your APR outside the time when we are supposed to review our APR, and we have to do that for many activities. So yeah, the fact that just the fact that people are not compliant with disbursement, with reporting, makes that we spend a lot of time doing things, and we could reallocate this time to helping you better.
Yeah. Okay, listen, let's get, just in the interest of time, Rosine, let's get to a couple more questions. Is there any waiver on the disbursement timeline of funds in the context of COVID, 6 months without disbursement leading to cancellation? Are you considering giving a little bit more leeway because of COVID?
Okay, so the guidelines say that you can only have 2 extensions. You can only have 2 extensions. So if you want an extension, it's just the regular process. You have to submit a memo to the KOAFEC secretariat, and in your explanation, you can give the reason that because of COVID there will be a delay, and we do look at every single memo, every single reason, and we appreciate it on a case-by-case basis. But if the activity was approved in 2017 and you didn't do anything until 2019, and now you say, well, it's COVID, now I want an extension, we won't accept that. But an activity that has been disbursing regularly and we have APR, and now you say, well, you need extension because of COVID, we can understand that. So we'll appreciate every situation on a case-by-case basis. But yes, we do take in account the fact that there was COVID. But COVID cannot be an excuse for activities that have not disbursed since 2016.
Yeah. Listen, next question. Pouvez-vous revenir sur l'explication du Untitled grant, s'il vous plaît?
I think, Rodrigue, you can take that one. So untied grants. So there was a time when the bank was until the latest, maybe not the latest policy, but for a long time, at the bank, you could have tight grant, which is not the case anymore. So what it means is, like, when Korea sends its contribution to the KOAFEC Trust Fund, the Korea cannot say, well, this contribution, it has to go to project where Korea is participate, or you need to have a Korean consultant, or it has to be for the specific those specific people, the specific countries. So they can't do that anymore. So the fact that the grant are untied is actually a good thing. It's a good thing for all the grant recipients. Basically, you don't have this requirement. That's why I was saying there isn't a requirement that to include something that is related to Korea. Obviously, they will appreciate it better, but they cannot say, well, our grant has to go to project where there are Koreans or things like that. That's what untied means. But Rodney can add to that if maybe my explanation
Yeah.
was not.
No. You're correct. I mean, since the 2006 trust fund policy, we've moved away from untied um, um, funds, and so so we don't accept funds from a government that says you can only use consultants from my country, for example. That's not something that we do, and that's since the 2006 policy. It will be reaffirmed in the next trust fund policy revision that's happening later this year. For the funds currently available for commitment, is there a restricted window during which proposals are accepted, or can you accept proposals at any time? I think you answered that one.
Mm-hmm.
That you're waiting for the next call for proposal, and that you can accept proposals outside of the call as long as funds are available. When will you evaluate the submissions for knowledge sharing, and how often do you give feedback after submission of the proposal, whether rejected or accepted? I think we submitted proposals last year for Nigeria.
Okay, so on this one again, so since 2018, the GCA expired, which means that we couldn't accept proposals. So we couldn't accept it or reject it either. So basically, the people that reach out directly, we will tell them that we are not accepting proposal at this time until we have a new GCA. And the answers, well, when we receive proposal, if they go to the TRC, once we get the information that is accepted or rejected, we will let you know. Same thing when it goes to Korea. When we have the information from Korea, we will let you know. It's very unfortunate that maybe you didn't get a feedback, but it's probably because, well, there was we would have, if you have reached out maybe directly, I would have tell you that we are not in the process of accepting proposal, but usually that's what happened. So maybe it fell into the cracks. So just if you say it was a year ago, maybe it was when there was a transition between trust fund manager, but usually we will tell you we are not accepting proposal. Otherwise, we will let you know the outcome of your proposal as soon as we have an answer.
Yeah. Two more questions, Rosine. What subsectors or priorities in infrastructure, and does the fund allow for co-financing with other funds, or can you only do it alone?
Okay, so on subsector, I will invite you to send me an email so I can give you maybe a better list. On the co-financing, so I didn't talk about co-financing, but there is co-financing actually at this time. The energy department has written a framework agreement with Korea on co-financing with Korea. The co-financing doesn't go directly, it's not directly, how to say that, it's not directly with the trust fund. So that's why I didn't talk about co-financing. But the general cooperation agreement covers the trust fund, but it also covers co-financing. So yes, Korea does co-financing, but it's not through the KOAFEC trust fund. So if you are interested in co-financing, it will have to come, you will have to put, there will have to be a general framework agreement saying how the co-financing will be done, whether it's parallel, whether it's joint, and that will be done, the conversation will happen between Korea and the department, not the KOAFEC. We will just be there as an observer, basically.
Yeah. Listen, there's a question for energy projects. Have you seen in the presentation you're doing infrastructure development support? Does it mean feasibility studies and other studies fees? Or does the fund also cover operating expenses for the PIU?
I'm not sure what PIU is.
Project Implementation Unit.
Okay, so yeah, it's not just feasibility. It's not just feasibility studies. We cover, the only thing that the fund does not cover, it's administrative expenses that are, well, expenses that are supposed to be covered by the administrative budget of the bank. Other than that, for example, we'll also not cover the purchase of equipment or vehicle unless, as I gave the example earlier about the drone project, unless it is in this kind of setting. But it's not just feasibility studies. We go above and beyond.
Next one is, so it's there's a follow-up question. So why, it says, why then are you saying there is 2.5 million available for commitment if you are not accepting proposals?
Okay, so 2.5 million available for commitment means that if we were to accept proposal, we would have 2.5 million available for those projects. We are not accepting proposal because we do not have an agreement to govern the relationship, but otherwise we will be accepting proposal. So it's important to, well, it's important because when I say there is 55 million disbursement and you look at the funds, the overall fund is 85 million, where is the remaining? And this is to say, well, there is only 2.5 available commitment because the rest of the money is tied in project and it's money that has not been yet disbursed. But as long as we have the GCA, we can accept proposal up to that, well, not up to that limit because we always have to have at least 500,000, 1 million, but we can accept new proposal.
Here's a question that is both specific and general, Rosine. It says, it takes significant time and effort to prepare proposals, having come fresh off rejection from another fund. Is it possible to receive feedback on where proposals fall short? You can certainly talk about it specifically for Korea, and we certainly are happy to give feedback. But I think at a later date, we may want to give a session about putting together proposals, because a lot of proposals fall short for simple reasons, i.e. they're not, either they're not well written, well explained, and so we can certainly go into how we look at those things, or they are not, they don't meet criteria that we've laid out. I certainly, as I've reviewed proposals, we lay out a specific criteria. If it doesn't meet it, sometimes people still present the proposals. And sometimes, quite honestly, people just take a proposal off the shelf that they've submitted for something else and they just send it. And they rely on us to figure out what they're really trying to do. And those things, again, are not very well received. I mean, we're looking for quality, relevant proposals that respond to the needs of the donor. So I'll say that generally, but I do think that it's worth in a later session possibly doing something about how to put together proposals for trust funds. But in the case of KOAFEC, Rosine, is there something you want to say, having reviewed numbers of presentations over the last cycles?
So I don't know if that question is specific for the KOAFEC, because in the case of KOAFEC, actually the donors, well, when we do a bank-wide call for proposal, we receive over 100 proposals. So it's true that we won't go proposal by proposal and say this is where it fell short. Usually the donor will have to, because for example, the last action plan, it was over 100 proposals and it was only 20 that were selected. Sometimes your proposal can be sound, but we won't take like 5 proposals for the same department. We won't take 10 proposals in the same sector. So we will send an email afterward to tell people the proposal that their proposal have been accepted, and with a general comment on how the selection process went. We'll say, for example, Korea decided to take 2 activities per sectors of interest, and they decided that they wanted half their proposal in West Africa. So we will kind of give an explanation on how the selection occurred. If it's a ad hoc proposal, we will certainly tell you how it fell short, basically. So I don't think that for KOAFEC, we so much have problem with feedback outside what you just said, Rod. If it's meeting the criteria, it's well written, if it's sound, we'll tell you, well, this is why it was not accepted, usually.
Yeah. Listen, two more questions, and then I think we'll end it, Rosine. And obviously, anybody who has follow-up questions after this, feel free to contact Rosine, myself, or anyone else in firm. The last question, I understand that any technical assistance under the KOAFEC or the Korea Africa Energy Investment will be drawn from KOAFEC. How will it work?
So basically what was negotiated, and I would have liked for someone from the energy department to be here to, you know, to second that. But basically the KOAFEC Trust Fund does finance technical assistance. So they decided that some part of their contribution to the KOAFEC Trust Fund should be earmarked, yeah, that's the word, earmarked for projects that are energy related, basically. So it will go in that envelope. I don't know if it makes sense. So they will give the contribution anyway they are financing technical assistance, anyway they are financing feasibility studies, for example. Now they decided that it's almost less. So some of these funds will be earmarked, so we'll have a part of it that will be set apart just for energy investment related project.
Okay, we can possibly give more clarification for that. You can maybe we'll have someone from the energy department to come up with a joint response, Rosine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's one other question, but I'm not sure it's asking double nationality from Africa. I don't think that's relevant, Rosine. So I'll spare you with that one.
Think so.
But listen, thank you very much, Rosine. We'll end it here. It's 5 until the hour. But thank you very much. That was very helpful. We appreciate feedback from all those who participated. We had over 100 people to participate, and feedback is always welcome. Subject matters, things that we can deal with are always welcome. So with that, we'll end this brown bag. Thank you, Rosine. Thank you, Jihan, as always. And have a great rest of the week, everyone.
Thank you.
Ciao.